Is that enough 2-barrel carbs for you? Hey guys, for those guys that are tuned in with me really early on the channel and about my project Nascar Tri-Power, that's still happening, guys, slowly but surely. I'm still in the process of just collecting bits and pieces, and even trying to get on top of modifying some of these pieces, and not to mention it's real costly. It's not going to be a cheap build, even though I am going old school and a vintage vibe for that build, but it's going to be, it's going to be all out, that build. Everything we can throw at it as far as, thought and research and things like that. And also, I'm not in no rush to fully complete that build anytime soon anyway. It is going to happen, but my supercharged Cleveland's still in there, you know what I mean? I'm still enjoying that, and it's just a matter of when I get enough pieces, I'll start with the block work and sending things out for machining. And I don't want to do that just as yet, because I don't want things machined up all brand new, and then they got to sit around. I got to oil them, and I got to just keep it coated and looked after until everything gets done and stuff like that. So I'd rather get on top of all the bits and pieces, and then sort of say to myself, right, let's go full steam ahead, let's wrap it up. And most of you guys remember the modifications I've done with the 2-barrel carbs that started life like that, ended up like this, and all that are all ported on the entries, and the butterflies are modified and things like that, just for it to sort of flow better, or even a better quality of entry to those carbs. And also with that Project Nascar build, there's 2 directions I'm going to go with it as far as intake. So the combination will be the combination, but I do want to do an intake shootout for it when that time comes. I'm not saying it's going to be anytime soon, like I said, but yeah, I am going to focus on that Tri-Power with that vintage Budmore cross ram that I have, and also the tunnel ram. I'm not sure if I'm going to go Holly 4150s on that tunnel ram, or actually get on top of my Predator carbs as initially planned. I'd love to do that. And also a single plane, which I can't get my hands on any talkers and things like that. Yeah, they're out of the question. I need to do a real quality one, like a Holly strip dominator would be at least what you would go for a large port 4V, but I'm even thinking of a like an Edelbrock Yates style intake to suit a high port head, and then hacking out the whole bottom of it, the whole plenum and the bottom of the runners, and redesigning, rewelding all that to suit a large port deal. And that's just going to be so much time and even costly to set up that single plane intake. But yeah, we're not going to muck around. I'm going to try and get 3 intakes done for it, and when it does eventually hit the dyno down the track, we're going to do a full induction shootout and really see the differences between all those setups and stuff like that. But yeah, there's no point doing separate Clevelands to cater for all these different inductions that I want to do. It's just that's too costly, and it just takes up too much real estate around the shed and stuff like that to have engines, and you know what I mean, the budget's not quite there. So I'd rather just do induction setups, and you can swap and change as I please. So when I do give the supercharged Cleveland a bit of a retirement, I'll make sure that the 4VNA deal is complete, and I can play around with inductions. I can do the super cool Tri-Power vintage setup on there, which I really want to and I really like. I can do the tunnel ram deal, and I can even do a single plane deal on it. I'll have all the horsepower, dyno figures for each one, so I'll know where the engine stands with all these inductions. and that'll be cool, you know, badass. But yeah, for those that were wondering whatever happened, you know, it's I'm not talking BS. It's happening. I have collected bits and pieces for it. Some things I wanted, you know, I wanted it to remain secret. You know, some secret spec stuff. But I might just, you know, by the time things happen, you know what I mean. It's really no secret. It's just more Nascar, you know, technology and NASCAR thought applied into this build. And I might drag out some of the gear I already got, and I might, you know, talk about it and stuff like that. But yeah, it's going to be an expensive build. It's, you know, there's custom rods. I've already got the rods and pins and things like that for it. I'm in the process of talking to, emailing back and forth with Scat Crank, so I might be going for a custom one-off crank for this particular build. So it's not going to be mucking around. It's going to be, like I said, I'm going to stick to an OEM style parts build as far as the core, like the block, you know, the head castings, things like that. But everything else is going to be, you know, going to be a little fancy within that engine, and it's still going to remain small cubic inch. I'm not going to go further than 380 cuber. I like the 375 inch stroke stuff, and yeah, it's like I said, for those that remember and tuned in early, just, you know, hang in there. Slowly but surely it's happening. Also with the 2-barrel Holly CARB stuff, there was a couple of comments, and not just that, there was a few videos out there talking about, you know, the 2-barrel stuff versus the 4-barrel stuff that's out there, and the way these car manufacturers flow them. You know, with the 2-barrel stuff being flowed at 3 inches of vacuum, and the 4-barrel stuff are all tested and flowed at 1.5 inch of vacuum, and there's a difference there. And I get that, I understand that. You know, I'm more of a guy that sees what things do in real life, you know, like on a running deal in a physical form. Then, you know, instead of talking, you know, science and stuff like that. And what I mean by that is, which is a fair point, like if you were, how can I put it? So these 350 carbs, you know, if they equal, what do they equal? 1050 CFM, it's like they're really equaling an 800 CFM type of deal. That's what it's behaving like at those inches of vacuum. So that's what they were trying to get at. And, you know, I see it that way, but I don't also. I see it as the opening in the Venturi, the opening in the throttle blade side, and the position where these carbs are across the plenum, and that's how I see it, you know. So take, for example, you take one of these carbs, just a single 2-barrel, even if it's a 350 or a 500 CFM, 2-barrel Holly CARB, a single unit can sit on a 6-cylinder and it can make 350 to 400 horse flywheel. Like I'm talking on a stout, naturally aspirated 6-cylinder, right? Some of these carbs, like say if we were talking about a 500 CFM 2-barrel, which this is right here, some of these carbs on a small block V8, again, a stout combination, can see 450, 500 flywheel horse. Right. So what I'm trying to get at is, and I know that, you know, you're probably thinking exactly what I'm going to say next. You're probably thinking, oh, it doesn't mean that all them are stacked on the plenum and you know, it's going to flow that. I get that. I get that point. Because, you know, once there's a couple of carburetors on the same shared plenum, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't mean like there's that much CFM all at once, right? It works a little bit different to that when it's a multi-carb deal. But you got to consider also, and you got to give it the benefit of the doubt, that when you split up carburetors like this across your plenum, you're providing pretty much adequate airflow and fuel delivery to that particular motor. And also you got to remember in real life, dynamics, how can I put it? A small, like one of these carbs on a small block V8, it's probably going to see more than 3 inches of vacuum in real life dynamics, right? In working conditions, it's probably going to see more like 4, 5, or 6 inches of vacuum, which then will make this carburetor flow like 400, 450 CFM, right? Thereabouts, give or take. And also you got to remember that Holley doesn't and never has stated when they sell you these things out of the box, a 2-barrel or a 4-barrel unit, they don't tell you anyway, or they don't remind you, oh, careful, a 2 barrels, flowed at 3 inches of vacuum, and our 4 barrels are 1.5 inches of vacuum. So you need to compare apples to apples there for your application. They don't tell you that. It's just guys like us that know your shit. You just know what to get, right? Or you know which carburetors you can stack together to work, like as if it is one good carburetor. But regardless, if we stick to what it says, right? These 3 carburetors stacked up at 3 inches of vacuum, each one is equivalent to anywhere, well, let's say around roughly around an 800 CFM 4-barrel carb double pumper. That's what it'll be equivalent to, and that's more than enough to make power. People think an 800 carb is small. It's not. And you got to remember too that a tri-power deal like this, it's spread out as well. So these how can I call it? These openings here, these Venturis and throttle blade openings, they get to complement that area much better. You know what I mean? Than a single 4-barrel unit. Not always, but possibly on that intake that I'm going to deal with. And it's just like that cross Boss intake video that I did on the Boss 302s. It's just like when they when Ford come up with the inline Autolite carburetor. It's the same deal. They spread Venturian openings across the whole plenum. Similar thing to this. But, NASCAR and Trans Am obviously banned that intake. You can watch that video I did on that. So it's pretty much similar deal, similar thought to what Ford had in the days anyway. But regardless, don't worry. I have a plan B anyway when it comes to this tri-power setup. So these are all 350 CFM carbs with my little modifications here just for it to flow a little bit better. And there's some mods as well, on the throttle blade shafts, on the blade, sorry. Just, for it to flow a little bit better than what they are out of the box. It's not going to be a tremendous lot. These these radius port work that I've done around here and underneath and vice versa. But, it'll help out a little bit. I've done those videos and those mods a while back. But my other plan is that that's fine. And this one here is a 500 CFM. And it does have a bigger Venturi main body. And it does have bigger throttle blade diameters. So what I'm going to do anyway as a backup plan, just in case this carburetor deal does choke out on that combination when it comes time, when it's on top of that Budmore intake, I'll prep this as a tri-power unit, and I'll do the same mods on this 500, and I'm going to keep this bad boy in the center. So that'll be the backup deal, and we'll just see what happens. You know what I mean? If because obviously that's going to flow more, and we'll just see if it does help out a little bit when we swap it over and give it a bit of a test. But like I said, that's going to be down the track, so not to worry. And like I said, that deal there is going to be close to 800 CFM worth if it was at 1.5 inches of vacuum, that deal there. But then again, in real life dynamics, that's going to work different, I guarantee it. But anyway, with that guy in the middle there, right, the whole deal there acts more like an 850-900 CFM deal at 1.5 inches of vacuum. You know what I mean? Like the equivalent. But yeah, a lot of guys get caught up, the fact of all that stuff, which is understandable, you know what I mean? I get, you know, why all that info and all that talk and stuff like that is out there. But yeah, a lot of people get too caught up about it and, you know, they just carry on and on. But at the end of the day, it'll be all right. But yeah, these carburetors, if you watch my real early videos when I scored all these carbs, I got them real cheap. They're all pretty good in condition. There's no shaft plays, you know, even the springs, everything is all snappy and responsive. But yeah, I do want to do another multi-carb deal for something, and that's why I just scored them now. And you know, you can always do 4 of these guys on another top on that Budmore. I can have 2 offset and 2 offset here, complementing, you know, each bank, complementing the cylinders. That'll be cool also. And it's just a cool factor, you know. I really like that old school nostalgic look, you know what I mean, multi-carbureted stuff, you know, whether it works or not, I don't care. It just looks badass, you know what I mean? Sometimes the normal stuff that's out there, I've had all that deal, just sometimes the normal stuff is just a little boring, you know what I mean, and in your face all the time. It's sometimes nice to go to, you know, something a little quirky, a little funky and old school, you know. But and you know, the challenge is to make it work also, not to just slap things on there and it's just junk. It's cool to get on top of it and actually make it work. But yeah, so I've got plans, you know, for these other carbs, possible plans later. And like I said, I am thinking about doing another supercharged, you know, just a straight small block supercharged deal. And I might use some of these multi-carburetor things on that, on top of the blower, just for it to look funky, not chasing horsepower, you know, just something for looks and something that's a little bit out there. Yeah, but anyway, just wanted to update you guys and keep yous, you know, in the loop with what's going on with Project Nascar. And yeah, it's still happening behind the scenes. So just collecting bits and pieces for it, like I said, and, you know, doing a lot of prep work and a lot of bits and pieces for all those intakes. So like I said, there's going to be a single plane, there's going to be the Budmore tri-power top, there's going to be the original top with that rare rebuilt Holly Dominator that I scored. That was actually originally on that type of a deal, on that Budmore. You can go and watch that video, that carburetor video. And obviously the tunnel ram video with the Predator carbs. And now we'll see what happens with these Predator carbs. But worst case scenario, if I don't run them down the track, if I can't, you know, rebuild them, or if I have issues running those old carbs, I might just settle for 2 750 Holly 4150 HP series carbs, carbs on top of that tunnel ram, and we'll just really see. But yeah, that build anyway, even when it comes time for it, you know, it's not going to be a race deal, so it's not going to be, you know, a wild crazy cam in it with high compression. It's going to be a pump fuel deal combination. So it's going to be for the Capri, so I can take it out, drive it, you know, drive it to the track, run it, you know, drive it home, stuff like that. And you know, us guys down here, we're a big thing on pump fuel, you know what I mean. We build you know, it's a popular thing here to build badass combinations, but to run on pump gas, not just the drag race fuel deal. So, you know, obviously you're limited there with the combination as far as cam and stuff like that. But, you know, when it comes time to it, we'll do our best. With, you know, being iron-headed, you can't go too crazy being pump fuel. But still, I'm guessing it'll be in the 11s, you know, like 11.2 to 1, something like that. No more than 11.5 to 1 compression, 11 to 1, something like that. You know what I mean? The cam will be most likely, you know, in the early to mid 600 lift, you know, which I think is decent with a 380 cubic inch small block and with that type of compression. So yeah, that'll be the limiting factor. So that's why I need to go fancy elsewhere to try and gain horsepower that way, or to free up horsepower that way. But yeah, ideally, you know, I'm not going to go a big, because it is still a standard block, so I'm not going to go crazy stroker deal and like 13-to-1 compression on, you know, straight race gas. No, I'm not going there. And, you know, if you were to go that way, whatever power I could achieve with the combination direction I'm going with, you know, if you were to go wilder in the cam and higher up in the compression, you can, you know, you basically can add 10% to the figure, you know, 10-12% in extra torque and horsepower to the figure that I'll end up making. So I thought I'll share that with you. I'll keep you posted on some other bits and pieces. Like I said, I was going to keep a few things secret, you know what I mean? But, you know, things are taking too long, and I can see, you know, some of the videos and some of the talk out there that's floating around. Some of the guys are mentioning a lot of the stuff, you know, that, you know, all the tricks, you know, that I've sort of been on top of in this last, you know, 10 plus years. But, yeah, it's nothing new. It's just all just come from Nascar type of technology and processes. That's all, you know what I mean? And I was sort of on top of that stuff, you know, probably well over 10 years ago. And I know that a lot of that, you know, a lot of those tricks are now being incorporated on drag builds. You know, where back in the days it wasn't as much. But yeah, I'll tell you, it's easily to get carried away. You want to keep, you know, you want to keep something, you want to keep the build cool and simple, but it just gets out of hand. You know, you say to yourself, oh, I've gone this far, I want to go, you know, do that, and I want to go do that, and it just gets really expensive, I tell you. And even this build, you know, yeah, sure, I could have done it, you know, the direction, I could have done it heaps cheaper, basic, but, you know, you'll have yourself a heavy, you know, clunker of a bottom end, and, you know, it'll just be a normal Cleveland, you know what I mean, that's out there. So this one's, I'm sort of going to go a more fancier route, and it just gets real pricey, believe it or not. You know, this build here, the way I'm going with it, it's gonna be more expensive, or just as expensive as going the aftermarket way, meaning, you know, aftermarket block and aftermarket alloy heads and whatnot. And, you know, you're dealing with OEM block and, you know, head castings and, you know, things like this, you know. But yeah, when you're pouring a lot of you know, fancy gear into it and little mods here and there, yeah, you know, time and money gets up there.